try to have people make our happiness so often, but happiness comes from self. It's generated from self. And that's the beauty of it, is that you know that this is your superpower. You can make yourself happy. It might be difficult, and you might have obstacles, but you are that beautiful, you're that unique, you're that miraculous that you can conjure happiness. It's going to take effort in a lot of cases, and I'm not minimizing how hard happiness is to achieve, but you can do it. You can.
This is UNSILENT, a speak series from NoStigmas that champions mental health advocacy and challenges the stigmas that prevent people from getting the help they need. I'm Eli Lawson, a producer for the show. This week, NoStigmas Lansport Alone will be having a conversation with Erika, a theatrical performer and avid mental health advocate. We'll hear about Erika's late-in-life bipolar diagnosis and how it proved to be great confirmation for the lifelong challenges she'd faced. But we'll also see how Erika harnessed her manias to fuel performance and storytelling. Thank you for being here. If you want to learn more or contact us, visit nostigmas.org. Don't face it alone. Be unsilent. This episode contains examples of racially based trauma. There's nothing explicit, of course, but it might hit too close to home for some. For those of you who haven't experienced something like that, though, I'd encourage you to listen in. Erika's message is very important.
Tell us a little bit of your connection to the cause. Like what do you feel brings you to be passionate about talking about mental health?
Before I even got my diagnosis, I think I had always been sympathetic toward mental health discussions because I just didn't understand why, especially in communities of color, we vilified and destroyed people for expressing emotional breakdown. And it really creates this situation where you have to have the strong alpha Black male. And then in my case, identifying as a female, the strong Black woman.
Yeah.
And you become raised as a coping and surviving mechanism. My mother raised me as a strong Black woman because she thought she had to for me to be able to survive. And I performed that strong Black womanhood until I found that emotional breakdown is the only place left for me to go at this point. Because strength and performing strength can only last with you so long. So I am thinking like, oh, I don't have a mental health issue, but I really feel for people with mental health issues. Later to learn that I've been bipolar since birth.
Let's talk about some of the dark times, like without triggering, without going anywhere you don't want to go. But like, what would be some of those moments that aren't the happiest?
I guess the funny thing about life is as many high moments that you have, you're going to have lows. And I didn't really understand that equilibrium and balance in life until I got my diagnosis. And a therapist described to me that I shouldn't suppress my episodes, but feel them, release them, understand them, and let go of the shame attributed to them. And that's been so helpful. Even just this week, 2 days ago, I had a very, very deep depressive episode. And they're usually triggered by some of the smallest things to other people. So this first step of helping me as a friend, family support system was to understand that what's small to you might just have been the last stone on a pile of stones upon my back, and it just broke.
If you or someone you know is experiencing a crisis, please call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255 or visit suicidepreventionlifeline.org for support via live chat. If you or someone you know is in immediate danger, please call 911. Other resources are linked in the show notes.
What was what did it feel like when you kind of felt seen?
Now, this is the thing. Therapists that I feel have really seen me, and this screams to representation matters, have been women of color. Specifically, one of my last therapists was a Black woman. And the only reason why we discontinued working together is because I moved from California. But just the way that I wouldn't even have to explain the base foundation of what's bothering me for you to understand what's bothering me today. Like, I would go into a session with, and no offense to the therapists of my past that have been white men, but y'all tried. But I would go to a session with a white male therapist and explain, well, I really feel that there's this pressure at work for me to assimilate and to silence myself, because anything that I say that might be, counter the group's way of thinking is going to be seen as aggressive or attitudinal or angry or things like that. And then he starts going into, well, what is your approach like? And I'm like, Black
Mm.
woman, that's what it's like. Silence sometimes. Just this presentation of being Black and woman in my body is where it's coming from. And then you have to spend a whole session explaining systemic oppression to someone who's supposed to be helping you understand your feelings.
Mm.
So when we scream and we say that representation matters, we so very much mean it, because I don't know, it's the difference in someone feeling as though they are validated, heard, and seen,
Mhm.
and not. Now, this is gonna save somebody's life, and I'm not saying that lightly because I know it
No,
needs to
it's
stay
no,
fine.
it yeah.
Yeah, dismantling the strong Black woman. That is one of the biggest things that we worked on. Is for me to know that that is not who I am. And there's nothing wrong with that. It was literally killing me, taking on too many projects, saying yes to too many people, letting too many people into my life that did not need to be there. And then how that turned into having an avoidant attachment,
Mm.
yeah, theory. So I tend to avoid things that I believe are energetically going to drain me. And that list becomes greater and greater and greater. Now, my feelings might be valid, but at the same time, avoiding them doesn't make them go away. And it also doesn't make me understand why I'm drained energetically
Mm.
more. And so we broke down all of that. We just broke down a lot of issues that I didn't even know I had. Like, I didn't know I had a difficult relationship with food, and with transitioning at that time recently to being plant based, it was showing up in it. It was like I was using being plant based as a justification not to eat, and for things like that, like, oh, I can't eat at this restaurant because I don't have any plant based. And
Mm.
yeah, and I was like, I don't know why I would have trigger warning, what people might consider an eating disorder. That's never come up for me before. And
Mm.
having this Black woman therapist with me explains how it shows up subtly in the body of a Black woman. Your body doesn't look like what the industry says it should look like, or you need to make sure because you live in LA that you have that BBL body, and not shooting the girls down to have it, but just all of those subtleties that exist
Mm.
in your body and have been there since birth.
Yeah.
Of being told that your hair isn't good enough, that your skin's too dark. With me being brown complexioned, having people say, "Oh, well, you're too light or you're too dark," or you never really accepted in your skin. Those things manifest into body issues.
Mm.
They turn into things that you just accept and swallow and move through in life with, that you don't know need to be addressed.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff came up, basically. I had been living in that experience of having these ideas that I felt, contributed to conversations, and not literally being ignored until a white male classmate took exactly what I said and repeated it. Of having my presence erased simply because these ideas of servitude come up, or even having people attribute to you being a teen mom and stuff. Why?
Mhm.
Because I remind you of some distant, nostalgic image of Mammy and Jemima. I know that's controversial to say and people don't want to address it, but yeah, those
Mm.
connotations of Black women, when you see me, exist. The people that walk up to me and say, "Hey, girl,
Mm.
Nene, hey, queen," that, it exists. And every day in this body, experiencing that and not being able to speak out. There was one point in that duo where I screamed, but I wasn't able to make a noise. And it would hurt my body because it felt so real.
Mhm.
That point, I think it would get Hannah too, on my dual partner.
Oh,
Yeah, because she was talking over me. I think she had to cover my mouth or something, and it would always I could feel her hand trembling when she would do it because it was one of the most gut-wrenching physical responses that you knew when you saw. That's how we feel.
yeah.
That's the kind of stuff that having a therapist that looks like you exposes in sessions.
Yeah.
Because then you go and there's this look of understanding of, I have been in that space too, and I'm here to tell you, we do need to hear your voice. You do need to let that scream out. We will make space, even if it's tough work. We'll do this together. So,
Yeah.
thank you.
Wow. No, thank you. Have you had any experiences like that where you really see that the most impact you have is not from, arranging some massive auditorium of people, but
Yeah.
those intimate moments that you're making, that you're
Yeah.
letting someone feel that they're being seen?
Yeah. When family members started to go to therapy as well. And Black women family members that have been fed the same sludge that I had of, we don't have the time and the luxury as Black women to talk about our feelings. We have to keep moving on, keep, being the pillar, and being, in the words of my favorite author, the mule of the earth, Zora Neale Hurston calls the Black woman. And when I'm in high school, I heard the mule of the earth. I mean, it was like my wind had been taken from my chest because I knew that feeling. I knew what it felt like to have to carry people and be tired as a 16-year-old. So when I saw cousins and aunts and even, closer relatives getting therapy, it felt like, if you don't win an Oscar, if you don't win an Emmy, if you don't ever make a blockbuster film, you are making a difference in people's real lives. You're serving an actual purpose. And that's all I want for my content. I used to have these goals of winning Emmys and Oscars, and they'll come. I don't doubt that. But it's now about making content that people can look at and find some kind of image of themselves in, and some glimmer of hope. Even if it's a piece about a darker subject, can you look at this and get relief of knowing someone else in the world feels in a similar way to you? I think the way that we use social media can definitely be advocacy, but I think sometimes people rely on it too much. So sharing a post is cool. Sharing content or sharing information helps to educate people, but have a conversation about it after. So I make space to have conversations with people about things that I feel I have experience in. So that's not easy. And I'm not asking everybody to do that on a daily basis, because that can be an exchange of energy that you don't deserve. And that person probably doesn't. But be honest and be kind to yourself when you're going into those situations. Like, for instance, growing up as a Black person in the South, you always have this conversation with your friends and your family of, what are you going to do the first time somebody calls you the N-word? That's sad that that's a conversation that happens, but it does. And so everybody's response is usually the same. I'm going to beat them. I wish somebody would. I clock them and all that kind of stuff like that. But the first time it actually happened to me, I was 4. And
God.
Right, I'm not thinking about beating somebody up at a Waffle House with my mother, and we're not giving service, and people walking in, passing us. My mom wants to take me for a nice little breakfast in a little church dress and church shoes and socks, and I'm asking her, well, why won't we eat, mommy? Why won't they talk to us? Why are they walking past us? And you really come to the understanding that those conversations have to happen on a one-to-one level first. You can't have that conversation with somebody thinking about the whole world, right?
Right.
Every time she's talking to me, mother to daughter, I've got to explain to my baby what racism is and why these people are not serving us and why we're going to stay here and protest it. We didn't make a word. We sat there in silence, but she taught me so much in that moment that I never forgot, about how just being in your body can be advocacy. Just standing up for what you believe in by being yourself, by living loudly and proudly, can advocate for somebody. Because sometimes I just be just doing my thing, like posting something on social media about having bipolar disorder and all of that, and I'll like make a comment And I remember once I posted a story about ways you can actually help your friends and your family members that live with a diagnosis. And somebody responded to me and was like, "Girl, you saved my life today." And I was like, just living honestly. The person that's watching this and that's resonated with things and that's felt like they saw themselves in my story. Every day isn't a great day for me, but every day is not a bad day for me. The only thing that is consistent about days for me is every day I wake up with one goal. That's to win, to fight, and to live. And so if you wake up and set your goal, your intention can be large, can be small, but I'm gonna win today. I'm gonna fight today. I'm gonna live today. Um, Even if today is not the best of days, I can say I fought, I lived, and I won. Because tomorrow I'll wake up and do the same thing. And then that'll be another year that I've won, I've fought, and I've lived. It can be hard sometimes. It's sometimes, right? Because see, that it's the fighting and it's the living on the day to day that do it. Don't give up. It's another day, it's another year. My birthday's coming up, and I'm just so thankful that I won and I fought and I lived to 31, because there were moments that didn't feel like I would be here. And so I just hope that there's somebody that's watching this that has felt, that way, has felt, deep and dark, and has had a moment, and know that every day that you win and you fight and you live afterwards makes that dark day just another drop in the bucket. There's so many beautiful days for you. So yeah. See, girls.
Oh.
That's why mascara is waterproof.
I'm gonna win. I'm gonna live.
Yeah,
and you fight.
So everything you do adds to that. Even if fighting, winning, and living was simply, instead of having a moment where I went so negative on myself, I went outside and I let the sun touch my face and reminded myself that this is just a moment. There are so many moments in life. There are going to be bad moments, good moments. But as long as I approach it with, I'm going to win, I'm going to fight, and I'm going to live, you can't possibly expect anything but a positive outcome from taking that much responsibility towards your own happiness. Because we try to have people make our happiness so often, but happiness comes from self. It's generated from self. And that's the beauty of it, is that that this is your superpower. You can make yourself happy. It might be difficult, and you might have obstacles, but you are that beautiful, you're that unique, you're that miraculous that you can conjure happiness. It's going to take effort in a lot of cases, and I'm not minimizing how hard happiness is to achieve, but you can do it. You can.
One last thing before I let you go. So the strength that was put on your shoulders growing up has brought you to a breaking point and has pulled you out of a breaking point. Yeah. What is that experience like? Do you know what I mean?
It's very similar to when you asked me earlier about how do I pull myself out of a depressive episode. It's like when you realize, this is messed up. This card that I've been dealt is not cool. Observe that feeling. Feel that feeling. And me releasing the strong Black woman was feeling it. I had to go through and feel all the trauma that it had impacted and inflicted upon me. And then I released it. So when you release it, you're able to see objectively the things that you learned, good and bad, from it.
Yeah.
One of the good things I learned was I can survive. I can fight. And I can win. So if all of that is true and it's happened in the past, even if it had been shrouded under this negative mantra of strong Black woman,
right,
it's still a power that I have within me.
Right.
So I can leave all the rest that doesn't benefit me, like not having any other emotions, not letting people in, not letting people help me, and believing that vulnerability is weakness. I can leave all of that and take the fact that I can survive. It just, I always tell people, you got to find some kind of positive in your negative, no matter how deep that negative is. Find something you can use, the last bit of fuel to get yourself out of there.
That's true.
Get out of here.
That's true. That's good advice. That's really good advice. Okay, well, thank you for talking with us.
This is UNSILENT. Thank you for listening. Today's episode was hosted by Lance Bordelone and produced by me, Eli Lawson, Lance, John Panicucci, and the rest of the incredible NoStigmas marketing team. Special thanks to Erika for sharing her story this week. To go beyond the show, connect with us on social media or visit nostigmas.org to learn more about mental health topics. Please leave us a 5-star review and share with others wherever you listen to podcasts. We'd really appreciate it. New episodes of UNSILENT come out every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Finally, remember that whatever you're going through, you don't have to do it alone. Be UNSILENT. We'll see you next week.